There's no evidence.
Well, evidence is subjective, and in fact there is no evidence for evolution. There is actually a lot of evidence contrary to evolution, such as unexplained complexity in life, the fact that evolution is not testable in any laboratory anywhere. We've tried. It is statistically impossible. Whatever. He'll just make some excuses. My favorite is, we'll know someday. Like that's any better than, well, God did it.
God doesn't stop the evil in the world. In fact, if you read the Bible, God committed plenty of it.
Evil is subjective. How do you know your morality is better than God's morality? Actually, I'd rather follow a God who professes to be perfect than a man who professes to be fallible.
Drowning just about everything alive? Not a sign of love.
You know, there's this neat little thing called rhetoric. And it is quite probable that you have no idea what was going on when that happened.
The opening lines of the Bible are factually wrong. Why should we believe the rest of it?
This coming from someone who believes in an unstable ideology that constantly changes. I think the Bible refers to an unstable doctrine a couple times. Fact is, some words in any science textbook prior to this year are factually incorrect. Why should I follow a modern textbook to the letter?
Prayer has never fixed anything physically impossible. Why won't God heal amputees?
Okay. This is called an inductive argument, which requires a lot of supporting evidence. He did not even give one supporting evidence, and simply made a claim. To which I rebut, as far as you know.
There are thousands of gods you don't believe in. What makes yours any different?
Okay, well, the type of God in the Bible is exactly the type of God that would create a universe similar to the one we live in. So it stands to reason that he's the God that created everything.
Where you're born essentially determines what you believe. Why should the truth be based on geography?
True, but truth is an absolute, which is something you don't believe in. So why are you even asking the question? But to answer it, truth is not based on geography. Our perception of truth is, though. This is also true in the case of science. But you would argue fervently that my view is not true because I don't believe the same way you do. Could it be that I was simply raised differently and am no more wrong than you?
Who created God? And how does your answer to that make any sense?
Okay. Let's take a step back and look at our universe. We've lived in a cause and effect universe all our life, so of course we want to impose our laws on God and conform him into our image. Fact of the matter is, though, that God exists outside of the cause and effect laws, because he created them. Therefore, they did not exist until he made them into being, and therefore does not need to conform to them. The fact that you and I cannot understand that does not undermine his existence. Your theory, however, does conform to the laws of the universe, and therefore must explain its origins. In other words, the burden of proof is on you, however valiantly you would like to say otherwise.
Pediatric cancer.
Well, assuming there is no God, then children dying would be a really bad thing. If there is a God, though, their life does not end when their physical bodies do not function anymore. Don't attempt to impose your worldview on my God. Plus, if you read the Bible, God says the wicked societies lose his protection, so children dying could very well be your fault. If God is real, at least.
Unconditional love shouldn't come with a list of conditions.
Wait a second. I'm sure when you get married, you don't want your spouse cheating on you, or beating you, or some other things. The fact that God has rules doesn't mean his love is conditional. Parents often love their children unconditionally. Does the presence of rules contradict that? No. Actually, I think that's one of the things Jesus came down to tell us, was that he has rules, but he still loves us.
Every single supposed miracle gets debunked eventually.
In other words, you haven't seen it happen. Yeah, that's a good argument. Totally, dude. Well, except the fact that we figured out the splitting of the Red Sea and the burning bush and a lot of other things. I don't know.
Somehow, the Ten Commandments left off don't rape people, and slavery's not okay.
I don't think you understand what the Ten Commandments are there for. Besides, God has other rules that do pertain to rape and slavery.
The movies and music that honor God are just awful.
Oh, I'm sorry. The church decided to spend its money on other things besides special effects. I think we have different priorities here, man.
The invisible and the non-existent look very much alike.
Whoa. You just described your evidence for your theory. That's incredible. We're making progress.
No hide-and-seek game lasts this long.
Actually, the fact that God isn't anywhere to be found is just evidence that the Bible is true. Because it does say that it will be incredibly hard to find him during the latter days. But I guess you wouldn't know that. So I can see where you're coming from.
Science explains so much of what we used to attribute to a god.
I don't see how this is an argument. Just because God created things that would perfectly work for his coming plans doesn't make him any less credible.
The more we learn, the less reason we have to believe in God.
This is not true. There are lots of scientists who changed their faith simply because they questioned the evolutionary theory for a second. Then, when it didn't hold water, they disposed of it. I think I can rephrase what you just said more accurately. Like this. The more our predisposition is altered by atheism, the less we believe we need God. I think that's far more accurate and honest.
If you try to explain your religious mythology to someone who had never heard it before, you would sound crazy. Seriously, try explaining communion wafers to someone who's never heard of Catholicism.
This is true, I agree. Let me try this from an atheistic standpoint. Long ago and far away, nothing exploded and became everything. Then a bunch of rocks and water and lightning became people. And the evidence I have is a bunch of indoctrinated people who are smarter than me say so.
If God didn't exist, the world would look exactly the same way it does now.
This is not an argument. Because, inversely, if God does exist, the world would look exactly the way it does now.
If God existed, he would smite me right now. I'm good.
I get the feeling you're not talking about the God of the Bible, who gave us freedom and gets far more angry when his children are in trouble than when his own name is in trouble. So, good list, man. Yeah, totally.